the dawn of time, man has searched for the best way to kill his fellow man. And thus Neanderthal, Thag T weapon, invented the first weapon. Some kind of sharpened stick or something. The point is, it wasn't great for killing, and it needed to be improved on. From that stick to a nuclear bomb in just 6 million years. Not too shabby. Today we look at the Team Fortress equivalent of that stick. The weapons that have been buffed the most. More specifically, unlockable weapons. This is going to be limited to one per class, and we'll be comparing the weapon from its release to today. This isn't necessarily covering what weapons are the most powerful, but comparing how much the weapon is improved from its original version. And the magnitude of the changes will be taking precedence over the number of the changes. So I guess it's partly subjective. I guess. So let's begin, shall we? For the Scout, it pretty much had to be the Criticola. Now, when the Cola first came out, it wasn't terrible, but it could be very situational, and using it at the wrong time meant you were likely to die, or at least take massive damage, considering you would deal and take mini-crits during the duration. So it basically went from a meh, underused weapon to arguably one of the most overpowered weapons currently in the game, over the course of several updates. First gaining the additional plus 25% movement speed while under the Cola's effects, and increasing the duration from 6 seconds to 8. Part of the problem, I recall, with the original version was that the mini-crits would run out before you got to use them. It was a lot of prediction on where the enemies were and how fast you could get to them after drinking the drink. So this fixed a lot of that. Lasted longer, made you faster, however you were still incredibly frail. Then someone got the bright idea to keep buffing it. Changing the mini-crits taken while under the effects to a plus 25% damage vulnerability. And then later further reducing that to a 10% damage vulnerability. The weapon offers some pretty incredible upsides for only a small damage taken penalty. Luckily, the TF2 team realized that the weapon was too good and decided to slap it with a nerf. 2 seconds of marked for death after the effects end. Okay. Something's better than nothing, I guess. Either way, the Criticola is undoubtedly much more powerful than its version 1 counterparts. The Conqueror was complete trash when it came out. Borderline unusable. I mean bad, there's no getting around that. But my, how things have changed. An early buff increased the health recovered from the rage effect from 20% of damage dealt to 35%. But that couldn't save the weapon. What really made it bad was how long it took to charge. Back in the day, the Conqueror relied on a combination of damage dealt and taken to build rage. A neat idea, but the amount required was, a little bit too much. When it came out, I really had no clue how much it needed to charge. You could maybe fill it once in a life, if you were lucky. I didn't know back then, but from what I could find, it took 1,133 damage dealt, 633 damage taken, or a combination of both to fill the rage. For comparison, the buff banner only needs 600. But that all changed when they not only made it so rage only charged with damage dealt, but also added a plus 25% charge rate compared to the banner. So now it only requires 480 damage dealt. Big improvements. They also went on to add a speed boost during the effects, and passive health recovery. First just 2 per second, then increasing it to a max of 4 per second, but having it decrease when damaged. Part of the reason this had to be Soldier's pick was not just because of how bad the weapon was when it first came out, but how good the weapon went on to be. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good weapon now. If we were including stock weapons, the flamethrower would have been Pyro's pick, hands down. But since we aren't, I gotta go with the flare gun. The changes to this weapon not only introduced new combos to the class, but affected every additional weapon that was based on it, meaning the detonator, man melter, and scorched shots. Originally, the flare's base damage was just 20, but it was increased to 30, so increasing the crit damage from 60 to 90. But originally, the flare gun did not even deal increased damage against burning players. That was changed when they made it mini-crit burning enemies, giving it some new combo potential, then making it crit burning enemies at mid to long range and mini-crit up close. And then we got it to where it is today, which is just full crits regardless of range. The original flare gun would have effectively been a straight downgrade to every one of Pyro's current flare secondaries, in almost every way. What happened to the regular old flare gun pretty much shaped the way the rest of them were balanced, and it's a lot better than it was to begin with. Demo's pick was a little bit tricky. Generally speaking, the class has gotten more nerfs than buffs. Not necessarily without cause, but still, more nerfs than buffs. And remember, we're talking about the current state of the weapon, so no lock and load, which got a big buff a while back, and then nerfed. The only option that really stuck out to me was the Quickie Bomb launcher, which has been buffed a fair amount. Though I don't think the weapon was ever really that bad, it has been buffed kind of a lot. And that first buff would be an up to plus 25% damage bonus based on the charge amount. Before that, the damage wouldn't increase with charge at all. And back when the weapon's sticky bombs used to fizzle out after a while, the time was increased from 2 seconds to 4, but ultimately it was removed. The charge time reduction was increased from minus 50% to minus 70%, and the charge damage bonus got increased from plus 25% to plus 35%. However, all this came at the cost of reducing the clip size from 6 to 4. So basically, they further exaggerated this weapon's stats and removed one of its downsides. Why? I'm not sure. But hey, fun fact, back when the bomb still fizzled, the Quickie Bomb launcher had the highest number of visible stats of any weapon, at 7. Maybe they wanted to simplify it slightly? Who knows, but it sure is better than it was, in most ways. Buffs for heavy, huh? What a concept, right? But I don't think there's a way this couldn't be given to the sandwich. I mean, even though the sandwich was pretty much always better than the shotgun in most cases, it has still been buffed a lot. The sandwich originally only healed 120 health upon eating it. This was, of course, increased to full health. And originally you could not throw sandwiches at all. And, well, they added that. The sandwich also didn't always use the cooldown timer. When you threw it, you would need to collect a health kit at full health to regain it. Which you can still do now, but as far as I know, that was the only way to do so previously. However, the sandwich received a pretty major nerf that prevented the heavy from healing off his own drop sandwich. For a time, almost no heavy actually taunted to heal. It was much faster and more efficient to just take the half health from a dropped one. But now it will only reset your recharge bar. Still major improvements from its original version for both the heavy and his teammates. And I even think that nerf was pretty warranted. Unlike some other heavy nerfs I could mention. Natasha! Breast Beast! For the engineer, the choice boiled down to the Widowmaker and the Eureka effect. But the thing with the Eureka effect is that the original version started off as a fairly decent weapon, but its second version was one of the worst weapons ever to be in the game, and has since been buffed a lot from that version. But I guess since I'm putting the most focus on the first and current versions of these weapons, I will go with the Widowmaker, which got 2 changes, reducing the firing cost from 60 metal to 30 metal, and for whatever reason, increasing the damage to your sentry's target by 10%. Having a weapon cost 60 metal to fire means you needed to be dead on accurate to even break even with your metal. There was almost no way you could reliably gain metal with it, and you could only fire 3 shots at full. Why would you not just use a stock shotgun at that point and not risk it? Cutting it in half made a huge difference. You could fire a lot more and you would gain more metal back. And that 10% damage bonus to the sentry's target, it did something. Made some difference. I guess. I don't get it. 10%? That's what, 6 damage? Maybe 9? That's some game-changing stuff right there. Still, it's an improvement. There was actually a time when the Crusader's crossbow wasn't considered all that great. I remember a lot of talk about the reload speed being kind of slow. It's not exactly all that fast. But I never thought that it was actually slower than the syringe gun's reload. It just seemed that way because, you know, you have to reload after every shot. But one of the first changes the crossbow got was reducing its reload time by 40%. And at first, the reload animation was sped up a lot. But from what I remember, there was a slight delay before it reloaded, so it looks kind of awkward. And then they smoothed it out. But where I'm going with this is that later on, they released a patch note that said the reload time was reduced from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds. When did it ever take 3 seconds to reload the crossbow? I'm like 95% sure that was never the case. And it actually takes 1.6 seconds to reload, which is exactly the same time as the syringe gun. So, what happened here? Was it reduced by 40%? Was it changed from 3 seconds to 1.5? Did I unearth some kind of major conspiracy here? To hide the truth from us? I seriously cannot find any information on this. And for those of you who remember the Pyromania update, remember the fast reload? There still exists video of it. And even footage from pre-Pyromania didn't seem that much slower than it is now, if it was at all. My only guess is that maybe the original crossbow took maybe slightly over 2-ish seconds to reload, and they lowered it to 1.6. I honestly do not know. If you have an answer, do let me know. I'm probably missing something stupidly obvious, but I don't know it. Well anyway, besides all that reload shenanigans, the weapon now reloads when not active. It didn't always. Huge buff, very convenient. And now it even gives some uber charge for healing, further cementing it as Medic's most versatile primary. Another candidate for Medic's weapon choice would have been the Quick Fix, since it came a long way from how bad it used to be. But due to its recent nerfs, I think the Crusader's crossbow edited it out. A lot has happened to the Sydney Sleeper. Originally, it was basically just 2 stats. Girardi on scoped hit and no headshots. Not really worth it. Then they added a 25% faster charge rate, making it able to deal more damage quicker. Now originally there was a small delay for when the scoped shot applied Girardi. It had to get to a certain charge point but always applied for 8 seconds after that. So there was no quick scope Girardiing someone. But that was changed when they made it so all shots apply the debuff, but the duration now scales with charge amount. So in some situations that's a nerf since it will apply for less time, but overall I'd say it's an improvement because you can now get that Girardi off on a quick scope. And that could be pretty clutch. Then it was made so that fully charged shots and headshots basically create a Girardi explosion, adding some bonuses for skill and patience. And finally, it can now extinguish teammates, which is something people have talked about since this weapon first came out, but now it can do it. This weapon did get 2 nerfs very early on though. The Sleeper actually penetrated targets, which I'm pretty sure was not intended. So yeah, that's gone. I'm not sure if that counts, but it's gone. And originally the weapon could randomly critical hit, but that has been removed and it cannot. I'm not even sure if that was intentional either. Overall, the Sleeper went from a mediocre at best weapon to a really solid support gun, even if expert snipers won't really have a use for it. Some of Spy's weapons have gotten a fair amount of buffs. The Diamondback, the L'Étranger, the Kunai vs. Kunai, Big Earner, Cloak and Dagger, but it couldn't go to anything but the Ambassador. Because, well, when the Ambassador came out, it only mini-critted on headshots, meaning a long-range headshot would do a whopping 46 damage. Yeah, pretty good. That's some pretty good damage. But now it does a full crit, which is considerably more. And that's it. But like the Sydney Sleeper, the Ambassador also used to penetrate, and again, I'm pretty positive that was not intentional. It was that one buff, though, that turned the Ambassador from a pretty bad weapon to a staple of many Spy's loadouts. This one early change made a big difference. And that's it! If I had to put some arbitrary order on them, I'd say, I don't know, something like this? You can decide. And who knows, maybe this list will be out of date someday. Which weapons are ripe for the buffing? I'm looking at you, Mantreads, Clem Classic, Righteous Bison, kinda. And maybe we'll do a most nerfed sometime, if anybody's interested. But for now, that's what I got. I'll catch y'all next time. Oh man, I'm fading out. Ow, this kinda hurts.